Okay, if you are worried at all about our first quiz, make sure you watch this. Make sure you understand all these questions, that you understand if you made mistakes, that you're willing to fix your mistakes. And if you can learn from your mistakes, you will do very well on this first quiz. So, the first couple questions, we are just looking at these two planes, okay? And we're going to answer some questions. So the first question, name 2 points. There's lots of different answers. So really, A is an answer. So for points, you just use a capital letter. You could use point K. You can use B. You could have point D. You could have point C. You could have point E. Just realize G is not a point. It's the name of the plane, and F is not a point. Okay, so any two, you just check to make sure you have any of those letters, and you will be good for that first question. Okay, now as far as naming lines, okay, hopefully you understand that you can name lines by picking any 2 points that are on that line and using the appropriate symbol above. Like so, for this line right here, whole bunch of different ways I can name this. I can take two letters like A and K, put them next to each other, and then put the symbol for line with arrows going in opposite directions. So I can call this line AK. Now I can switch it. Another name would be line KA, but it's still referring to this same line. I could use the letter B, but only use 2 points. Don't use 3 points. We use 3 points for a plane. So the other line is this line here. And again, the order doesn't matter. I'm just going to say C, D, and put the line above it. So these are names for these two lines. And again, there's more than one way. Okay, so if you have line DC, you are correct. Okay, so then the next question, it says give another name for line MN. So that's this line. Okay, we can see that it's also an S. Okay, we can see we have an S here, so you can call that line S. Okay. Another name, you could reverse the letters. You could say line MN. That is correct. And since this also has the letter P, you could use the letter P. Like line MP, you could also use NP, line NP. So a whole bunch of different ways that you can name that line. So here are just two. And like I said, the order doesn't matter. Name 3 points that are collinear. Collinear means points that are on the same line. Okay, so if you're referring to this line right here, I can use M, I can use N, and I can use P. All points that are on the same line. Now, if you use the other one, you could use T, N, W are all collinear points. Okay. The next question, name 3 points that are coplanar. Coplanar means points that are on the same plane. So looking at this plane right here, I can take any three letters that I see on this. So we'll say M is on that plane, point M, point V is on that plane, and I'll use a P. Now you could also use point N, that they're all coplanar. Okay? Name a point that is not coplanar with N, P, and T. That's supposed to be, I believe. Oh, that's what letter is that? I'm now seeing that got messed up a little bit. So let me look over here. Yeah, this is supposed to be a T. Okay, so we're talking about a plane that goes through N. So where's N? N, T, and P. So this plane right here. So any of these letters over here. So like V would not be part of that particular plane. Okay. So again, they're not just referring to this plane. since they had, and it kind of got messed up there. So I'll make sure I go over that. I didn't realize that T is kind of hard to see on your paper. Okay. So just make sure points that are not on the same sheet of paper. That's what you want to think of. Okay. Next question. Question number 8. We're referring to this. You had a very similar problem on Big Ideas. It says, name a point that is coplanar with ADG. So ADG is this flat part of the box. So think of that as a bottom of a box. And we're supposed to name a point that is coplanar. Well, L is part of that. So L would be part of that same. You could also use point F if you wanted to. They're all on that flat part of the box. Name the intersection of plane HEG. So HEG is the back of the box. It's this part. And DF, so DFE is this side. Okay. So what you need to realize is the back and this side, they share this line. This would be a line. Remember, a plane goes on forever, so it would be line EF. So EF with the symbol, the line symbol above it. Okay. So then for the next one, number 10, name a point that is collinear to BH. Okay. So we have to find line. And remember, this goes on forever. Line BH also contains the point N. Okay. So again, I'm hoping that this seems very obvious for you. Make sure you're using capital letters for points. Make sure you're using the appropriate symbol then for lines. Okay. The next diagram, we're referring to this. It says name 3 points. Again, lots of choices. You can't use H though. H is not a point. So that's how we're naming this plane right here. But I'll just name all the points on this plane. So these are all collinear to plane H. It would be F, E, and D. And then you could also pick any of these 3 points. Okay, so A, B, G would all be correct answers. So you're just any combination of 3 that you can pick. Name 2 lines. So I can name this line, which is EF or FE. It doesn't matter the order. I'm going to say line EF, put the symbol above it, and then we'll refer to line AB. Okay, they are lines. Name all points in plane H. So plane H, we look here and we're going to see F, E, D. F, E, and D are all on the same plane. Name the plane that contains A, B, and G. You can name it. You could use all 3 letters and call it by ABG, plane ABG, or since they have this letter right here, we can say plane C. Okay, that's how easy it is. But if I use the letters, I would use a capital A, capital B, and G, and that's another name for that plane. Okay, let's move down. Okay, now make sure, some people struggled with this idea of opposite rays. Okay, when we name a ray, order matters. Okay, ray has a starting point. So if I look here, this starting point of E, I can say ray EG. Okay, now put the symbol for ray. It starts with point E and goes through G. So ray EG and EF are opposite of each other. One points this direction, the other one points another other direction, but we share the starting point. That's what makes it an opposite ray. So make sure you understand that. I could also have used, so if you have on your paper ray EC and ray ED are also opposite. So since I named one pair, either pair is correct. Name 2 points that are collinear with point D. So point D is on this line right here. So it shares point E and point C. Okay, they're all on the same line. Okay, name a point that intersects line CD and plane A. So you have to kind of visualize this line's going through plane A and they share the point E. Okay, need you to see that E is the point that is shared on the line and the plane. Okay, name a point that is not coplanar with plane A. So you have two choices. C is a point that's not on that sheet of paper, and point D. So either C or D. I'll write that C or D would be correct answers. Okay. Now here's where you're going to try to do your best at drawing. It says we have a plane. Here's my sheet of paper. I'm going to label this an A. So there's my plane A. And then we're supposed to have a line that intersects at point C. So here's going to be my line. It's going to intersect right here at C and then go through the plane. So that's about as best that I can do, but I'll also label B. So we should have, so line BC is that line that cuts through and touches that plane at point C. Okay. Then the next diagram I want you to draw, number 20, is two planes that never intersect. So you're going to need to have a plane on top of a plane. So we'll label this, they have plane M and plane N. They can never intersect. Okay, so that's that first sheet. Hopefully that made sense. For the next question, I would provide a ruler for you. So we're supposed to measure these to the nearest 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so I would give you a ruler. You can start at 0. So make sure you're at 0. And you're going to see this. This one's pretty. I have my ruler that goes by 16ths. So this really is 4/16, which is 1/4. So it's 1. So it's a complete inch and 1/4. Okay, so 1 1/4 inch is that segment. For this one, we're going to see that it's more than 2 inches. Halfway is 8. So this would be 9/10. So I can write 2 10/16, which you should reduce to 5/8. Okay, and 2 little slash marks that represents inches. So 2 5/8. Okay, so then the next part is just going to have you plot points. So I'm hoping that everyone, this is super easy to understand, where we're going to plot the points, then we're going to determine whether segment ST and UV are congruent. You just have to remember, congruent means same size, same measurements. Okay, so let's quickly plot some points. We'll do this one first. We have S, which is to the left one up 2. There's S, and then -1, and then 1 is T. Okay, that looks like just one unit. And then we have U, which is over 1, 2, 3, and down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's my U. And then I'm going to go over 3. 1, 2, 3, and down 2. 1, 2. And you're going to see that that is longer. So in this case, we can say ST is not congruent. So I'm going to put a line through that, and UV. So they're not congruent. They're not the same measurements. Okay. So then let's see if the next set of points. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase this so it doesn't confuse you. And I'm going to replot these points. So I have 1 up 1, 2, 3. There's my new S. I have 1 and then down 1, 2, 3. That's going to be T. So it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so this has a length of 6 units. And then let's compare that to 3, -2. So we're going 1, 2, 3, down 2. And then -3, 1, 2, 3, down 2, 1, 2. Okay, so what you're going to see here is this right here is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is also 6 units. So we can say, since ST equals 6 and we have UV equals 6, we can say, now I'm going to put segment marks up here since I'm actually saying these two segments are congruent. So for measurements, you don't need the segment, so they're both equal to 6. But I do want to say segment ST is congruent, equal sign with this little symbol above it. ST is congruent to UV. They're both equal to 6 units. Okay, so describe and correct the error. Well, this one should be pretty obvious. It's not 4 1/4. Okay, it's not 4 1/4 inches. They are starting at the wrong amount. So this is that roller postulate. If you start with a 2 instead of a 1, you're really going to do 2 minus, and this part is correct, but you're going to take the absolute value of that difference, and you're going to see that AB is equal to 3.25, okay, not 4.5. Okay, so here's a little word problem using that segment addition postulate. So if you need to draw a little person, so here's my person. I can't draw. There's my person. We know the total man is 76 inches tall. Okay, so we know the total, and they're just going to break this up. We said head to shoulders. So head to shoulders, that's going to be 14. We're told the length of his waist to his shoulders, so from waist to shoulders, I did not draw this to proportion, is going to be 30 inches. We need this little segment down here. So this is our X. So it's a pretty simple calculation where if you add these two segments will equal 44. We can then just subtract 76 inches minus 44 inches. You're going to see that from his waist, or excuse me, so it is from his feet to his waist is going to be 32 inches. Okay. This next part, this is the addition, the segment addition postulate. This should be very easy for everybody. So make sure you answer the question I'm asking. I want to know the length of K to M. I give you enough information to know that that's simply going to be 8. Okay. 2 plus 6. For this one, just as easy, Km, again, total, I don't know why I wrote an L, so K to M is going to be 12 plus 9, you're going to get 21. Okay, and finally, this is just going to be 17. Okay, nobody should get that wrong. Okay, so we have one last page of problems, and hopefully all these questions, you say, Mr. Eggman, that seems very obvious, and I'm hoping that it's very obvious to everybody. Okay, so here's another application of that segment addition postulate, where we're participating in a 150 mile bicycle trip, and I'm going to tell you how on day one we did the 46.8. On day 2, we did 51.4. So simply add those numbers together. So when you add 46.8 and 51.4 together, you get 98.2 miles. Okay. And we just want to know how much do we have to, what's remaining. Okay. So our last part, the last part of this is going to be to take 150 minus this total so far between days 1 and 2. You went 98.2. You'll have a calculator. You're going to see 51.8 miles, and that's going to be your hardest day. So which day did you bike the most mileage? It would be day 3. So this day 3 is the longest part of your trip. So day 3 would be the toughest. Okay. Pretty close to day 2, but day 2 was a little less than day 3. Okay. Should be easy. I'm hoping that seems very easy to everybody. Okay. So now this is very similar to the big ideas question. We have a bisector. We have a segment bisector. In this case, we're supposed to identify the bisector. For this problem, it's a ray that's bisecting. So ray MW and put the ray symbol above it. Okay, so that's your segment bisector. And then they want to know ST. Well, if this is 19, that makes this other segment 19. Add them together, ST would have to be 38 units. Okay. Here's some algebra. This is, really the only algebra you're going to see on your test. I'll have a problem where I bisect the segment. So in this case, the segment bisector is line L, is what will cut that segment in half. And here's the algebra, a simple equation to solve. We need to find x. Now, once we find x, don't stop there, okay? Make sure you actually answer the question, which is going to be ST. So to solve for this, it's not going to take long. I bring this x over. I'm going to have a 2x. I'm going to add the 6. I get 14. And just like that, I'm going to know that x is 7, okay? But I need to take this 7 and plug it in. Either side, doesn't matter which side, because I'm going to get the same answer for both of these. So if I plugged in a 7 and add 8, I'm going to get 15. If I plugged it in here, I get 21 minus 6, which is also 15. Therefore, the total distance from S to T has to be 30. Okay? So again, that is probably the most steps that you're going to have to show on your quiz or on our first quiz. Okay, so just make sure you understand that. And then here, we talked about the midpoint. So it doesn't matter what the 2 points are, we should be able to find the midpoint very easily. And I have the formula on my board. It's just a simple matter of finding the averages of your x's and the averages of your y's. So to do that, so the midpoint for number 33, midpoint, I take 2 plus 2, that's my x's, and then I take that sum and divide by 2. I do the same thing for the y's. 1 plus 13, divide by 2. So these are pretty easy calculations. You get 4 divided by 2, which is 2. You get 14 divided by 2, which is 7. Therefore, the midpoint, and we can just use the letter M to represent the midpoint, and it's 2 comma 7. Okay. Over here, I do the same thing. I add my x's, and yes, you can add and you can get a 0. Okay. So what we're going to see is my x value is 0. When I add my y's, I'll get 6 over 2, which is going to be a 3. So the midpoint for number 34 is 0.3. Okay. So now I am telling you the midpoint. So just make sure you understand when you get to this problem, I tell you the midpoint. This is my midpoint. So you're going to take this point, the point that's given, we need the other point, okay? The other end of this segment. This is in the middle. I give you 1 point, I need the other point. So to do that, all you're going to end up doing is taking the x value, adding it to the unknown x value. I don't know what that value is, but I do know if I divide by 2, it should equal 1 in this case. Okay, that should be a very easy problem. Think of cross multiplying. This is 1 over 1. 2 times 1 is 2. Negative 1 plus x times 1. You're going to end up with an equation that looks like this. And solving, you'll know x is a 3. So I know that missing point would have an x value of 3. I do the same thing for the y's. I tell you a y value. I don't tell you the other y value, but I do tell you that if you average these out, it's going to be equal to 2 in this case. So 4 plus y equals 4 in this case. 2 times 2 is 4. Y is going to be 0. So 3, 0 would be the value of that other point, okay, which it would be D. So point D. So CD, I tell you the C, and the missing point would be 3, 0. Okay, same thing here. You only have to do one of these. I'm having you practice 2 of these just so you have extra practice. But on the quiz, there's just going to be one of them just to save time. So again, I tell you the midpoint. I give you the x value. I don't know the other x value, but I can simply solve for it. Okay, super easy equation. Take this times this, which is going to be a 6, and solve for x. I know x is going to be a 5. Then I look at my y values. For the y's, I am telling you the midpoint for the y is a 7. I give you one of the y values. I don't tell you the other, but I do know it has to equal 7. 2 times 7 is going to be 14. I subtract 1, and I get 13. Okay, so the missing point that I need, so this time I tell you D, so this technically would be C, would be 5, 13. Okay, oops, can't see that. That's 5, 13. Okay, then the last 2 problems, and then we're done. And I'm hoping that this makes perfect sense to every student. We have finding the distance. And if you look on my sideboard, I have that distance formula that you most likely will memorize, but you can glance at it if you need to. The distance formula, given any 2 points, is going to be the square root of the differences in your x's. And I don't care how you subtract these. It doesn't matter if you take 1 minus 4 or 4 minus 1, because you're going to square that. And then you're going to take the differences in your y's, 7 minus 6 in this case, and square it. Okay? So it is important. I talked about this, that if you are going to use a calculator, 1 minus 4 is negative 4. And if you're going to use a calculator to square that answer, it needs to be in parentheses. Okay? If you don't use parentheses and you want to square negative 3, it's going to give you the wrong answer. Okay? Negative 3 squared without parentheses, the calculator thinks it's the opposite of 3 squared. It's going to tell you negative 9. We don't want negative 9. We need this to be negative 3 squared, which is positive 9. Okay, so we get 9 plus 7 minus 6 is 1. So 1 squared, we're going to end up with the square root of 10. Okay, and I would want you to use a calculator and tell me the square root of 10. I know it's 3 point something. I know the square root of 9 is a 3, so this is going to be a little bit more than a 3. And I'm going to put 3 point, I could round to a 2. I'm going to say 1/6. I'm going to round to 2 decimal places. Okay? So that's exactly how you do that problem. Okay? Number 38, the last question, should be just as easy. It doesn't matter these numbers. I take my x value minus the other x value and I square it. I then add the differences in y's. I see a negative 5 minus a negative 8, and I'm going to square that whole thing. Okay? So I'm going to clean that up. And I can do these calculations in my head, but if you struggle, let the calculator, you can type this into the calculator Again, I wouldn't do square root until the very end, but I can type in -1 minus 3, close the parentheses, and square it. It's going to be 16, okay? Because it's going to end up being -4 squared, which ends up being 16, okay? Again, if you can't get a 3 on your own by looking at this and knowing that's a 3, parentheses, -5 minus -8, that's going to be a 3. And when you square it, it's going to tell you 9. Okay, so I know it's going to be 3 squared. I get a 9. 16 plus 9 is going to be a nice square root of 25, which means we get a nice answer of just 5. So this time it won't even be a decimal. Okay, so that is the distance from G to H. Okay, this was AB. Okay, that is everything you need to know for our first quiz. Okay, so you can go back, look at some big idea questions that we did, look at some of the notes, redo some of the same problems if you need practice. So if there's an area that you're unsure about, please go back and redo some of the problems that we did together. Okay, so that took me 31 minutes to go through all 38 questions. The quiz is shorter, so the quiz should definitely be done in a period. So just be prepared, get yourself prepared to be able to answer similar questions. Make sure you understand the notation. Okay, so thank you for watching. Do your best when you take your quiz. Take care.